Hello, friends. Good morning and welcome to all of you. My name is Dr. Smita Bhagat. I am a coordinator at KIDK Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is founded by Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara sir, and his idea behind this institution to provide an academic space to scholars, professors, and social scientists who are engaged in the field of Dalit studies. Today, Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is going to have a 60th lecture, and this lecture is a part of series that we have started on the occasion of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Jayanti in 2025. Today, Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara sir going to chair the session and also going to deliver a lecture. So I like to welcome and introduce him. Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara sir is a distinguished academician, former Vice Chancellor, and the founder of the Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. He holds a PhD from JNU, New Delhi, and authored History of Dalit Identity and Modernization of Buddhism. Key contribution and milestones, academic and curriculum leadership, started his teaching career as an assistant professor in the School of Ambedkar Studies at Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, BBAU, Lucknow, introduced the pioneering Dalit history course into the MA history curriculum at BBAU. Social advocacy and equity is instrumental in implementing a 50% reservation policy for SST students in BBAU admissions. Founded the Ambedkar University Dalit Student Union in 2000 and the Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar Central University SST Teachers Association in 2006. He served leadership roles at Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya as director cum professor at the Babasaheb Ambedkar Sidhu Kanu Murmu Dalit and Tribal Studies Center. Served as Dean of the School of Culture and eventually as the Vice Chancellor of the university. So, I welcome Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara sir for today's lecture. Professor Karunyakara sir going to deliver today's lecture on Annihilation of Caste on section 21. So I request Professor Karunyakara sir to please start his lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Smita Bhagat. Glad to see you today introducing me. As we all know very well that Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is continuing Dalit Knowledge series of lectures for past 1.5 years. And I am discussing Ambedkar's text, Annihilation of Caste. This text consists of 26 sections. Ambedkar touched upon different subjects on each section that relates to annihilation of caste. So this section 21, it is dealing with the intellectual class, the role of intellectual class. Ambedkar was of the opinion that it's very easy to involve in the social reform in secular field. For example, political reform. So if we want to bring a social reform in politics, social reform is a broader way of explaining a reform in the society. So political reform is a kind of social reform, that is a secular reform. Academic reform is a kind of social reform, that is also a secular reform. So secular reform, many people involved very easily. But when it comes to religious reform, not many people involved. Because religious reform means you have to question your own religion. You have to question your own religious beliefs. That's why many don't participate in the religious reform movement. Right? Normally, everyone wants to be part of the political reform movement as well as economic reform movement. In other words, secular reform movements, secular social reform movements. Everyone wants to be there. But religious social reform movements, no one wants to be there. Ambedkar, when he was writing this text, 1936, he was addressing this speech to the Hindu audience, particularly to the caste Hindus. He wanted to bring a social reform within the Hindu society. Ambedkar said that to bring any social reform in a society, you need to look at the intellectual class. In Hindu society, generations and generations, education was reserved only for Brahmin class. Hence, Ambedkar said that for Hindu society, Brahmin is the intellectual class. Not only Brahmin is the intellectual class of Hindu society, Brahmin is looked as gods of the earth, Bhu-Devata, and Brahmins were respected by the Hindu. That's what Ambedkar was talking in 1936. So Ambedkar says that since Brahmins were benefiting out of the caste system, why should they destroy the caste? Even they are intellectual class. So he said that it's a very, very difficult, highly impossible to bring reform, social reform, anti-caste movement, breaking the caste in the Hindu society, because the leadership should be any movement, the leadership, the guidance and leadership generally in the hands of the intellectual class. All society look at the intellectual class for guidance. If intellectual class is a Brahmin class, then Brahmins are never going to bring any revolution within the Hindu society. Why? Because by destroying the caste, Brahmins have to leave many privileges. So Ambedkar says that as long as Brahmin is the intellectual class of Hindu society, there will be no social reform in Hindu society. There will be no anti-caste movement in Hindu society. That's what the gist, crux of the section 21 of the Annihilation of Caste. Now, let me explain the whole gist into our own perspective. That's a Dalit perspective. As you know very well that reading Annihilation of Caste, anybody can do it. But my purpose of discussing Ambedkar text Annihilation of Caste is to reconstruct, to rebuild Dalit society. Now the question is that majority of the Dalits are in Hindu religion. That's a fact. So whatever Ambedkar talked about reformation of Hindu society in 1936 and expecting that intellectual class would reform the Hindu society, and since Brahmins happen to be the intellectual class of Hindu society, Ambedkar conclude that there would be never going to be a social reform in Hindu society because Brahmins would never want to leave their privilege. And Ambedkar also said that, see, let me quote Ambedkar, caste has a divine basis. I am quoting Ambedkar, section 21 of the Annihilation of Caste. Ambedkar said, caste has a divine basis. You must therefore destroy the sacredness and divinity with which caste has become invested. This means you must destroy the authority of the Shastras and the Vedas. Now, Brahmins being the intellectual class, is a Brahmin ready to destroy the authority of the Shastras and Vedas? That's what the question Ambedkar raises. Ambedkar says that who should lead anti-caste? That is the social reform of Hindu society movement. In social reform within the Hindu society means what? Social reform in Hindu society means what? What kind of reform you are expecting? There are secular reforms, secular social reforms in the society. What is that? The secular reforms are political reform, economic reform. There are Brahmins. Ambedkar observes that there are Brahmins involved in the political reform movement. There are Brahmins involved in the economic reform movement. And there are also some Brahmins involved in the Garv opposite kind of movement. Means those who left Hinduism and Brahmins wanted those people to come back to the Hinduism. That movement also there. Brahmins involved. But Brahmins never involved in the anti-caste movement. So social reform in Hindu society means movement against caste, movement against the caste system, movement against the casteism. That is the meaning of social reform in Hindu society. And Ambedkar says that it's intellectual class that has to lead the social movement. Some people say that secular Brahmins are there, they will lead the movement, social reform movement. Ambedkar says that there is no difference between the secular Brahmins or priestly Brahmins. I would like to call Sanatana Brahmins. Ambedkar found two kinds of Brahmins in India: secular Brahmins, priestly Brahmins. I would like to call the priestly Brahmins as Sanatan Brahmins. So in my own terminology, there are two kinds of Brahmins. One is secular Brahmins, another one is Sanatan Brahmins. In Ambedkar words, priestly Brahmins. So what Ambedkar said about these two kinds of Brahmins, these secular Brahmins, priestly Brahmins. Ambedkar says, listen very carefully. You must be having many Dalits as secular Brahmins friends. But what Ambedkar wants to say about the Brahmins, very carefully listen. Ambedkar said, in my judgment, it is useless to make a distinction between the secular Brahmins and priestly Brahmins. Both are kith and kin. They are two arms of the same body, and one bound to fight for the existence of the other. Look, very clear. Ambedkar very clearly stating that there is no difference between the secular Brahmins and Sanatana Brahmins. Both of them are same. Though they fight at peripheral level, but internally they are all same. Secular Brahmin protect the Sanatan Brahmin and Sanatan Brahmin protect the secular Brahmin. Means secular Brahmin protect the priestly Brahmins protect the secular Brahmins. So ultimately Brahmins are one and all same. There is no difference between secular Brahmins, Sanatan Brahmins. I am not saying, it's Ambedkar who is saying. That is why the Marxism failed in this country. Because, the earliest leadership of the communist movement in India was in the hands of the Brahmins. Brahmins were the leaders of the communist movement. M.N. Roy was the first communist leader. Communism failed because communism was a secular Brahmin movement in India. They might speak about economic reforms, but when it comes to religious reform, even secular Brahmin, that means even communist Brahmins, they never fought against the caste. Even communists, that's right, we know very well the communists, in the history of the communist movement of India, we find that communists never involved in anti-caste movement. Means Indian communists never organized anti-caste movement. That's why Ambedkar said that there is no difference between secular Brahmin and priestly Brahmin, Sanatan Brahmin. Both are same. Hence, Ambedkar says, I'm quoting Ambedkar, A man who is born a Brahman, listen once again, a man who is born a Brahman has much less desire to become a revolutionary. In other words, what Ambedkar wants to say that as far as religious reform is concerned, as far as anti-caste movement is concerned, Brahmin cannot be a revolutionary. Brahmin never going to bring revolution in the Hindu society. Brahmin will be there in the political movement, political reform movement. Brahmin will be there in the economic reform movement. They're all secular reform movements. But in the religious reform movement, Brahmin won't be there. If at all Brahmin involves in the religious reform, that reform is not a reform. That is bringing back the people to the Hindu religion. Like nowadays so-called Gar Wapasi. Some people say Gar Wapasi. So whoever left Hinduism, they want to bring back to Hinduism, Hindu society. There you can find Brahmins. That is a religious movement they do. But when it comes to questioning the very wrong principles in the religion, in the Hindu society, that is about inequality, social inequality, caste, discrimination, Brahmins won't be leading any anti-caste movement. Ambedkar says that Brahmin never going to do it, and since Brahmin is the intellectual class of Hindu society, it's very unfortunate that Hindus are never going to get the revolution within their society. It means there will be no anti-caste. Hindu society is going to remain casteist forever. That's what Ambedkar wants to say. That is the reason why Ambedkar left the Hinduism. Now, he is talking about intellectual class. He says that why there is no anti-caste movement within the Hindu society. There are two reasons Ambedkar says. The one reason is that the failure of intellectual class, and Brahmins are the beneficiaries of caste society. That is why Brahmin, being intellectual class, never going to lead anti-caste movement. That's one reason. See, intellectual class have to guide the society. If intellectual class itself is a corrupt, then what happened? There will be no reform in the society. Another reason why there is no reform in the Hindu society is that caste, the nature of the caste. Caste not only divide the people into different castes, it also organizes the people into higher caste and lower caste. Not simply higher and lower, it's a graded arrangement of the caste. Some higher, some lower, and under that lower there is some lower. So the lower become higher and the lower to lower is a lower. Like that there are a castes. And there is not a one caste system, there are caste systems. In somewhere in this Annihilation of Caste, Ambedkar said, there is caste is not a singular, caste is a plural. There are caste systems. So because of these two reasons, the failure of the intellectual class, Brahmin intellectual class, the failure of the Brahmin intellectual class, and the nature of the caste system that arranges the caste into higher and lower. Ambedkar says that all lower castes are slaves. Means, no, I have not all. Ambedkar says that all the slaves are all are slaves of the caste system. All are slaves of the caste system. Not only higher caste, the so-called lower caste also slaves of the caste system. See, you are a lower caste, you should fight against the lower caste system. You don't fight. Why? You want to see someone loyal to you. That is the reason nobody wants to fight against the caste system. Nobody wants to fight against the caste system because everyone feels higher. Everyone wants to find someone loyal to him. So Ambedkar says that all are slaves of the caste system. All are slaves of the caste system. But all the slaves are not equal in status. In European society, rich people are there, owners are there, slaves are there. All slaves are equal, at least. That's why all slave people came together, fought against the system of slavery. But in India, all lower caste people could not come together. Why? They are all not equal. Within the lower caste also, someone is higher, someone is lower. And that lower person also higher to someone lower. So there is a graded division of the caste. Such a horrible strategy made nobody come together. Since the lower caste person also enjoy, he is a slave. Ambedkar says that all are slaves, even Brahmin also slave, because he is getting beneficiary. That's why he want to be slave of the caste system. But lower caste people who are slaves of the caste, they are discriminated. He wants to fight against the discrimination, but he wants to discriminate his lower caste people. Are you getting my point? What I mean to say that every caste want to find to be higher to the other person. That is the reason why backward caste people, they want to be with the Dalits, then they want to fight against the Brahmins. But at the same time, backward caste people want to be higher to the Dalits and to harass the atrocity, commit the atrocity against the Dalits. In fact, in the field, in the society, it is the backward caste people who commit the physical atrocities against the Dalits. This is so because backward caste people and Dalit people are very living, their locations are, social locations are very near to each other. So naturally there is a jealous between the neighbors. So we need to have more intellectuals in the backward caste like Pule, Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, Periyar Ramaswamy Nayakar. In fact, there are many social reformers born in Shudra community. The backward caste are Shudras, Shudra community. Within the Dalit community, there is only one, that's Ambedkar. If you want to count, after that we could say that after Ambedkar, there are many, like Manivar Kanshiram, or many. Many people are fighting. But social thinkers, if you find in the history, many social thinkers we could find in the Shudra community. Of course, Shudra community is the largest majority community in India. If Shudras are educated, India is educated. If Shudras are poor, India is a poor. If Shudras are backward, India is a backward. Why? Because the majority means Shudra. As long as Shudra is a backward, India is a backward. As long as Shudra is illiterate, uneducated, India is uneducated and illiterate. Since it's a vast majority of Indians belong to Shudra Varna, Shudra community, Shudra class, there should have been many more thinkers. But unfortunately, very few thinkers born. Very few. So we need more and more thinkers, particularly from the Shudra community. Dalit community is just 15%. Adivasis are 7.5. Shudra is about 40% of the Indian population. Total 40, all these communities together, it goes around 70, 80% or 90%. If you include all religious minorities. What I'm trying to say that Ambedkar wanted to say, without intellectual class, there will be no reform in the society. Let me read what Ambedkar wants to say about the intellectual class. It's a quotation. Listen very carefully. This is very important. Although Ambedkar was talking about intellectual class in the context of Hindu society with a reference to Brahmin community. However, This intellectual class, the definition is applicable to even to the others also, to the Dalit intellectuals also, to the Shudra intellectuals also, to the Adivasi intellectuals also. So let me explain first, let me read out first what Ambedkar said about the intellectual class. In my judgment, the intellectual class, every country, the intellectual class is the most influential class. Look what Ambedkar said. In every country, intellectual class is the most influential class. In 1936, when Ambedkar was writing this book, there was no Dalit intellectual class because there was not much educated people within the Dalit society. But today there is many, there is an influential intellectual class within the Dalit society because many Dalits today are educated in comparison to 1936. When Ambedkar wrote Annihilation of Caste, it was 1936. Today is 2026. 90 years have passed. After 90 years, when you look at the Dalit community, take the Ambedkar words which he was addressing to the Hindus, Brahmins particularly. The same thing he addressed to the, he contextualized to the Dalit society. Ambedkar says that intellectual class is the most influential class in the society. Now my question is that, is there Dalit intellectual class? Yes, it is there. Today it is there. Because Dalits also getting higher education. There are professors in highly reputed academic institutions like JNU, like Delhi University, like Hyderabad Central University, like Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtra Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Pantha. There are many highly reputed academic institutions. Their Dalits are holding academic positions. So the question is that when Ambedkar says that intellectual class is highly influential class, it means Dalit intellectual class is highly influential class within the Dalit society. Intellectual class, listen carefully what Ambedkar is saying again. The intellectual class is the class which can foresee. It is the class which can advise and give lead. Ambedkar says that intellectual class that advises the society, intellectual class that gives the leadership to the society. Every Dalit want to be a member of political party. Everybody want to be a member of Bahujan Samaj Party. Everybody want to be a member of Azad, no, Chandrasekhar Azad political party. Everybody want to be a member of Prakash Ambedkar political party. Everybody want to be a member of some political party, some or other political party. But what about the intellectual class? If you are a political party, if you are a member of political party, if you are a part of political class, you could be a governing class. And politicians have no time to read and write. Politics is itself is a 24/7 engagement. You have to involve anything in the life, any field. If you want to be a doctor, you have to give your whole time to the medical knowledge. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to give whole time to the legal knowledge. If you want to be a politician, you have to give whole time to the political knowledge. So you can't be an intellectual, you can't study a society, you can't give a leadership to the society. So don't think that politician will be a leader of a society. Politician is a leader of state. Society is a nation. India is a nation state. Nation state means what? Society plus state is equal to nation state. Nation means society. You are expecting political leaders to become a leader of society. It's wrong. You can't expect Manivar Kanshiram or Banji Mayawati or any other leader to become a leader of a society. It's wrong. By becoming a chief minister or prime minister, Dalit political leaders can give a leadership to the state, Indian state. They are the leaders of the Indian state. If they become if they are having the opportunity to become a prime minister, ministers, or chief minister, anything. So political leadership always is a leadership of the state, not a society. But the roots of the state lies in the society. Even if you want a political power, you have to bring a social reform in the Dalit society. If you want to make a strong Dalit political leadership, you need to first prepare the society for that. You have to bring the social reform in the Dalit society. First, you have to strengthen the social relationship within the Dalit society. So Ambedkar says it's the intellectual class that guides the society. Where is the Dalit intellectual class? It is there. It is there. Dalit intellectual class is there. But why there is no guidance to the society? Because even intellectual wants to become a politician. Yes? Is there any problem? Smita, is there any problem?
No, sir, no.
Yeah. Problem is that every Dalit, even intellectual class, want to become a political class. We are forgetting the thin layer of difference between the political class and intellectual class. The thin layer. Since it's a thin layer, after getting education, after becoming a government employee, and we aspire to be a politician. My dear friend, politics is a full-time job. Doctor, becoming a doctor is a full-time job. Medical doctor is a full-time job. Academician is a full-time job. Completing your PhD and becoming a doctorate, having a doctorate degree, becoming a university professor, it's a full-time job. So you have to choose. Like that, you have to choose whether you want to become a lawyer, doctor, or engineer. Like that, you have to choose. You want to become a professor or not. It's not that anywhere you don't get job means you will come to the academics. That kind of people only job holders, bureaucrats, like clerks. Even then they work as a professor, their life is like a clerk. If you want to give your life, dedicate your life to the academics means you should not involve in the political activity. Not involved in the academic activity. Even if you involve, what I'm trying to say that even if you involve, that should be the secondary, not the primary. Your primary thing is that academics. Being an academician means you are intellectual, highly educated. To become an intellectual, you need to be highly educated. What else you want? You are a PhD holder. Means what else you want? You are intellectual. Then what are you doing? You are involved in the political activities. You are not at all doing the social activities. You are not at all bringing the social reform movement, leading the social reform movement within the Dalit society. If you ask me that, Dalit intellectual should not be a part of any political party. It's not your business. If you want to become a politician, go and join a politics. Give a full time to politics and don't claim to be an intellectual. Because being intellectual is not a great thing. Intellectual can also be a corrupt. That is the problem in the society. The problem in the society is that society can be reformed only by the intellectuals, but intellectuals become a corrupt. That's what Ambedkar here says. Listen what Ambedkar says. In every country, the intellectual class is the most influential class, if not the governing class. The intellectual class is the class which can foresee. Foresee means what difficulty is going to come. What should be the future of Dalit society? Who will tell? It's intellectual class will tell. Because they are the educated class. They are the highly learned class. So Dalit intellectual class knows that what should be the future of the Dalit society. It's not the politician. Even intellectual guide the politician. It is the class, is Ambedkar, I'm quoting Ambedkar. Ambedkar says about intellectual class. It is the class which can advise and give leadership to the society. In no country, listen this one very carefully. In no country does the mass of the people live the life of intelligent thought and action. Try to understand this sentence. In no country, masses live the life of intelligent, intelligent thought and action. What does it mean? Mass people in any society, in any country, even Dalit masses, don't expect them to be a very intelligent. Don't expect them to be a, in action. No. To change the society, you don't require the masses. You just require a handful of intellectuals. You require a handful of intellectuals. You need a one leader to lead. There is only one Karl Marx. There is only one Ambedkar. There is only one Buddha. There is only one Jesus. There is only one Guru Nanak. And look at them, how many followers they have? Very handful. Jesus had only 12 disciples. Among 12 disciples, also one disciple deceived him. Look at the Gautam Buddha, how many disciples he have? Panchavargiya Bhikkhu. When Gautam Buddha delivered his first sermon at Sarnath, he was having only five disciples. Those were the core disciples. Ananda belonged to the 5 disciples only. Panchavargiya Bhikkhu, it's called. In Pali, it's called Panchavargiya Bhikkhu. Panchavargiya Bhikkhu. 5 monks. Jesus had 12. So these are the intellectual people. This Panchavargiya Bhikkhu, intellectual of the society of that time. And only one intellectual leader, that's the Gautam Buddha. Same is the case with Jesus. There were 12 disciples to him. They were intellectuals, thinkers of the society of that time. And there was only one intellectual leader for them. That's Jesus. Same is the case. Look at the Guru Nanak. There are 10 Sikh Gurus. Am I right? 10 or 12? 10, I think. Am I right? Anybody can correct me? Is there anyone to correct me? How many Sikh Gurus? Guru Nanak he was the leader of that time, intellectual leader to guide the society. These are all thinkers, social thinkers. So what I'm trying to say that, you tell me, why Gautam Buddha left the royal family, why he left the political power, why he didn't rule the country? That's what I'm trying to say. If you want to reform society, you have to be a full-fledged. You have to dedicate a whole life to the academics, intellectualism, your scholarship. You have to be a scholar. You have to lead a society. You cannot become a king, ruler, as well as intellectual leader. No. State is different from society. Though state has the roots in the society, state leadership is in the hands of the politician. Society leadership is in the hands of the intellectuals. That's why Gautam Buddha, if the Gautam Buddha wanted, he would have become a king of his country. Kosala. Am I right? Is it Kosala? Nobody is there to correct me. Anyhow, so Gautam Buddha wants to be a...
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So why Gautam Buddha didn't become a king of his country? At the same time to change the society? Why? Because that's entirely different things. Being a ruler, he has to be a head of the state. And the head of the state cannot become a head of the society. Because head of the society has to guide the head of the state. Look at the Hindu system. Brahmin is the head of the society, being an intellectual class. And Kshatriya is a head of the state, being a ruler. So within the Dalit society is nothing to do with the Hindu society. Now Dalit society is the outside of the Hindu society. Since Ambedkar left Hinduism. No, when you want to reconstruct, rebuild Dalit society, that's what the KIDK aim, purpose. The KIDK purpose is to rebuild the Dalit society. When you want to rebuild the Dalit society, within the Dalit society, we need to create not only political class. Of course, we have created political class. We had a very big political reform movement. We had a very big political leadership. Ambedkar started a political party, All India Dalit Federation. All India. Ambedkar started 3 political parties. One is a Independent Labour Party, All India Dalit Federation. The other one is a Republican Party of India, which Ambedkar didn't even contest. He thought about that party. But the most successful political party of Ambedkar was All India Dalit Federation, Akhil Bharatiya Dalit Federation, which is also called as All India Scheduled Caste Federation. What I'm trying to say that, however, Ambedkar was not that much successful politically because Ambedkar was basically a social thinker. He was guiding the society. But Kanshiyam was a successful politician. Why? He was not a social thinker. He was basically a politician, political thinker, political reformist. So you have to choose. We need to create Dalit society already have an intellectual class, but still why Dalit society is without guidance? Why? Why? Ambedkar gives answer. Ambedkar gives answer. What answer Ambedkar giving? Listen. The intellectual class is the class which, in no country does in no country does the mass of the people live the life of intelligent thought and action. Remember, what we do, we just go to some illiterate Dalit person, or less educated Dalit person. We expect that guy to become a very revolutionary. It's a foolishness. Don't expect the mass people to become a revolutionary. Don't expect the mass people to involve in the movements always. Don't expect the mass people to think intelligently. No, this is the work of intellectual class. And to change the society, to rewrite the history, to create the new history, to rebuild the Dalit society, you don't require mass people. You require honest intellectual class. Mass people just follow the intellectual. Mass people don't think. Mass people don't use the mind. They believe the intellectual people. Once the mass people believe the intellectual class, they just follow. So mass people have a belief. For guidance should be given by the intellectual class. But what is today happening? We are expecting every Dalit intellectual want to become a politician, and he expects that Dalit masses to lead the movement. And Dalit masses to think intelligently. How foolishness it is. That's what Ambedkar very clearly says that mass people in any country, Ambedkar is not in India, in any country, in any society, mass people don't think intelligently and mass people don't involve in activity, in action. It is the leadership of the intellectuals. Once the intellectuals lead the movement, of course, mass people automatically join. It becomes a mass movement. But who will start? It's the intellectual class. What Ambedkar says again, in no country does the mass of the people live the life of intelligent thought and action. It is largely imitative and follows the intellectual class. Ambedkar says that Dalit masses, or any masses, mass people imitate intellectual class. And they follow the intellectual class. Dalit society has intellectual class. Why there is no mass movement for the social reform within the Dalit society? Why masses are not following the intellectuals? Are intellectuals really doing their duty? Or their dreaming to become a political class? This is a mistake Dalit intellectual class is doing. They want to become a politician every time. They are always dreamed to be a politician. This dishonesty making the masses not to believe the Dalit intellectual class. That's why, every poor Dalit guy says that these people got reservation. They have become big officers. They have become big professors, but they are not doing anything to the Dalit community. They'll say they are not. Why they are saying that? Because intellectual class is dishonest. So Ambedkar says, there is no exaggeration in saying that the entire destiny of a country depends upon the intellectual class. How big statement it is. Ambedkar says there is no exaggeration to state that the whole country destiny, the society destiny, means the whole Dalit community future is, Dalit society future is, depends upon the intellectual class. That's the meaning. The whole country future is depends on the intellectual class. That is the strength of the intellectual class. The intellectual class is not a governing class. Governing class is a political class. They have a power. Governing class, the political class people have a power. Power is very attractive because immediately you can do, immediately you can bring any, you can take any action. You can bring anything. You can make a law. You can force the people. You can change the system immediately. That's a political, but that's why the political power is very attractive. But political power is not long lasting. You can't have a political power forever. It is the society. Once society believes something, it long lasts and it's very difficult to change. For example, caste. Caste belief in the caste, it's difficult to change. Even if you make 100 laws, 100 laws against the caste, but caste survives. Why? Because if you give an order, there should be no caste in the country. You can't be successful. The order will fail. Why? It has to come from the society. Supreme Court once gave a ruling, passed a judgment order that there should not be any crackers busting during the Diwali festival in Delhi after 10 o'clock in the night. Then what happened? Nobody bothered. Everybody started even burning the crackers even after 10 o'clock during the Diwali time, in the night time. Why it happened? Because these kind of things, anything if you want to bring in the society, change, reform, it has to come within the society. Political rule, you can threat, you can create a fear of atmosphere of fearful atmosphere. By force, you can't bring a change by force, you can bring a temporary change, not a permanent change. Political power can bring only temporary change. Political power can bring only temporary reform. If you want to really reform the society, you have to bring social change, social reform. And who will bring the social change, social reform? It is the intellectual class. So Ambedkar says the future of any country, the future of any society, I want to say that the future of Dalit society depends on the intellectual class. Now, what Ambedkar says, if the intellectual class is honest, if the intellectual class is honest, independent and disinterested, it can be trusted to take the initiative and give you a proper lead when a crisis arises. Now the question is that, is Dalit intellectual class honest? Is the Dalit intellectual class independent of any political interest? If you are a Dalit intellectual, are you not interested in Bahujan Samaj Party politics, Chandrasekhar Azad politics, Prakash Ambedkar politics, or any political party politics? Your position should be above the political party. You should take a position. If any political leader commits a mistake, you should tell you are making a mistake because you are standing for the society. You are not standing for any political party. You decide. You decide. If you want to be a politician, you join any party. You support that party. But if you want to be intellectual, then you have to be very honest to the society, not to the political party. If anybody makes any mistake, you have to tell that political party, you have to tell that political leader that you are doing wrong. Then only you are real intellectual. Then only you are honest intellectual, which Ambedkar is talking about. But what Dalit intellectual people are doing, they are members of some political parties, sympathizers of some political parties. There is nothing wrong. Being a citizen of India, being a voter of India, you should have a sympathy, you should support a political party. But not blindly, but not dishonest against your own society. So if you want to be intellectual, your first priority is the society interest, not any political party interest. So don't become a slave of any political party. You become a honest intellectual, independent intellectual, without any political interest of the Dalit society. That is the meaning of honest intellectual given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the section 21 of the Annihilation of Caste. So what Ambedkar says again, Ambedkar says it is true that intellect by itself is no virtue. So don't think that if you become an intellectual, it's a great thing. Ambedkar saying that intellectual by itself is not a virtue. It's not a great thing. There are many Brahmins are the intellectual class of Hindu society. But Ambedkar says that Brahmins is a dishonest intellectual class. They don't want to bring any reform in the Hindu society. They want to enjoy their privileges. So Ambedkar says Brahmin is a dishonest intellectual class in Hindu society. No, forget about that. Dalit society has nothing to do with the Hindu society. So what about the Dalit society? What about the Dalit intellectual class? Is Dalit intellectual class? There are many Dalit intellectuals in India. Within Dalit society, there are many Dalit intellectuals. Now the Ambedkar says that by becoming intellectual is not a great thing. By becoming a university professor, giving a lectures on the platforms, it's not a great thing. Are you standing for the society or are you standing for your own self-interest? You want to become a more and more. You want to become a vice chancellor. You want to become if you are assistant professor, you want to become an associate professor. If you are associate professor, you want to become a professor. If you are a professor, you want to become a dean or vice chancellor. So for that purpose, you keep quiet. Even if anything, you are not guiding the society in a right way, honestly. Why? Because you want to grow in your career. That's a dishonest. Or if you are intellectual, you want to be, you are supporting some political party and you become blind. Even if that political party, you never criticize that political party because you want to become some political leader in future. So the question is that Dalit intellectual class should decide if they want to become a politician. You go and become a politician, no problem, because Dalit society wants politics also, but Dalit society also want political class. But there must be some intellectuals also, no? For unfortunately, it's a general statement, not everyone, because majority people of the Dalit intellectual class want to become a politician. Because of that reason, today, though there is intellectual class within the Dalit society, but there is no honest intellectuals who can guide Dalit society without associating themselves with any political party. Here associating themselves, what I mean to say that you must stand with the society, even against any political party. That is the honesty of the intellectual. If there is a clash between your political party and your society, if there is a clash between your political party, suppose your political party, I'll give you an example, because the biggest political party for the Dalits even today is a Bahujan Samaj Party. When Bahujan Samaj Party started giving one fundamental change statement philosophy, that is what is that from what is that called Brahmins are the intellectual class. Of course the Brahmins are the intellectual class, but today Dalits also intellectual class. Ambedkar said Brahmins the only intellectual class in 1936, but 2026 there is a Dalit intellectual class. So I felt a little bit annoyed. Why? Because why is such a big political party that symbolizes with the Dalit politics, Dalit political power, giving a philosophical statement stating that Brahmins conferences, Buddhajivi conferences. It's very misleading. Why it's misleading? Does it mean that permanently my Dalit identity is not a Buddhajivi? Dalit can't Dalit be an intellectual? So philosophical foundational question arised. See, if you want, of course, in politics, what happened? You need to have a votes from everyone. That is called pure politics, no ideological politics. But if you want to have ideological politics, it's very difficult for you to become a successful politician. Why? Because in a strategy, you have to. Why I'm quoting this thing? Because the absence of intellectual class. Not a single Dalit intellectual questioned this. Very unfortunate. Bahujan Samaj Party is very much right as far as Bahujan Samaj Party want to get votes from the Brahmins. So it is doing its rightful, it's a proper strategy. But for as a Dalit society, it's a very harmful. It's Dalit society is very harmful to brand only Brahmins and the intellectuals. Anybody only Brahmin intellectual conferences. Only Brahmin conferences, intellectual conference. This is a philosophical, foundational questions arise in my mind. Strong intellectual class that can question the Dalit political leadership that you are right politically, but you are wrong socially. We could not question the Bahujan Samaj Party political leadership at that time. Why? Because very weak intellectual class is there in the Dalit society. So politically you may be right, but socially we must be right if you want to be a honest intellectual. Why I'm giving this example? Why? Because there are many political parties doing many mistakes. Why I'm giving the Bahujan Samaj parties this example? Because it is highly influential political party within the Dalit society. I am not finding wrong with the politics of the Bahujan Samaj party. I am finding wrong with the intellectual class of the Dalit society, which could not question that politically BSP is right, but socially it's wrong. It should have said. But no intellectual said this. Because intellectual class is by and large dishonest. Dishonest. Everybody wants to do their politics. That is why Ambedkar said that. That is why Ambedkar said that it is true that becoming intellectual is not a great thing. What is a great thing is that when you question any authority for the sake of your society. If intellectual stands for the society, even at the cost of his career, even at the cost of his interest, that is the great thing in intellectual. So by becoming a doctor is not a great thing unless you become you are very very concerned about patient instead of your money, earning the profits. If a doctor is concerned about the profit than the patient, he is not a good doctor. So becoming a doctor is not a great thing. Same is the case with the intellectual. Intellectual is a society's doctor. If intellectual is becoming intellectual is not a great thing. If he is concerned about profit, intellectual should concern about society. That's what Ambedkar says. It is true that intellectual by itself is not a virtue. It is only a means, and the use of means depends upon the ends which an intellectual person pursues. An intellectual man can be a good man, but he can easily be a rogue. Good man, but he can be easily a rogue. You are personally a good man. You don't drink, you don't lie. You may be a good man, but you are keeping silent. You are silent. You don't say anything. If any injustice happens, you don't say anything. So what is the need of them to be a good man? Even if you're a good man, there is no use socially. There are some intellectuals, Dalit intellectuals, they don't speak on anything. They keep quiet. Some intellectuals, Dalit intellectuals, they build their own personal career. They want to become big people in their career. They want to become vice chancellors. They want to become this, and they want to become politicians, ministers. So they always stand with their personal interest against their Dalit society. That's the one kind of Dalit intellectuals. There's another kind of Dalit intellectuals. They don't speak anything. They simply keep quiet. Why should I bother about society? Why should I bother about politics? Let me think about my own career. Let me write very good papers. Let me write, I will increase my API score. Let me publish my papers only. I don't want to take a position on any social issues. I don't want to guide the society. That is so they are the good people. That intellectuals who don't say anything, they're the good people. But what is the use? So Ambedkar says, good person is a rogue person. Rogue. Similarly, an intellectual class may be a band of high-souled persons. Similarly, intellectual class also very good soul person, very good people. But they may ready to help. Intellectual person, he can give some money to some person, some student to, to pay his fee. If anybody is in difficulty, he can help. Like that, intellectual class also can do this kind of activities. There are many organizations are there. They work for society. They give they want, if any student is becoming a first in the class, they will organize those to celebrate him, support him, celebrate him. This kind of there. But these things are good things, are not going to bring a reform. Not going to bring a reform. I have seen many Dalit organizations. If anybody become IAS, any Dalit guy or girl, there is boy or girl become IAS or IPS or IRS, or any Dalit boy or girl become a state first or first in the SSLC, 10th class, intermediate. They organize some functions. They honor them. That's fine. That's a good thing. So Ambedkar said it's a good. And the people who are doing this thing, they are good people. But they are useless people also. Why? Because these things are not going to bring any fundamental changes in the society. You have to address the fundamental problem. What is the fundamental problem in the Dalit society? Dalit society fundamental problem is the Dalits are divided into hundreds of castes. Dalits are divided into different religions. There is a fight, there is a conflict, misunderstanding between Dalit Buddhists and Dalit Christians, Dalit Hindus and Dalit Buddhists. That fundamental questions intellectuals have to address. That's what Ambedkar want to say. So Ambedkar says that Brahmin not going to do all these things in the Hindu society. That's why there will be no reform in the Hindu society, because Brahmin is the only intellectual class in the society, and Brahmins don't want to bring any reform in the society. He want to bring a political reform, academic reform, but not political reform, not religious, not social reform. That's why Hindu society is never going to have any reform. When we talk about Dalit society, the same is the case with the Dalit intellectuals. Ambedkar was talking about a Brahmin intellectual class. It was in 1936. But today we have Dalit intellectual class. It should be applied. Ambedkar thoughts should be applied to the Dalit intellectual class in 2026. The Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge conducting this series of Dalit lectures, particularly I'm deliberating on the Ambedkar's original text, particularly with reference to Annihilation of Caste. Why? The purpose is that to reconstruct Dalit society. Who will reconstruct Dalit society? Who will guide the Dalit society? Who will give the leadership to the Dalit society? It's the intellectual class, not the politicians. Not Bahan Kumari Mayawati is going to come and lead the society. Her role is to lead the state because she is a politician. It's not the Chandrasekhar Azad, somebody else. They're all politicians. They are trying to bring the political reforms. They want to mobilize the Dalit society into a political force. So even if they become a prime minister, chief ministers, what they are going to give leadership to the state. They make a law. Constitution of India is there. Laws are there. Still, why we are suffering? Because by making a law is not enough. Fundamental changes politics cannot bring. Fundamental changes in the society can be brought only by social reform. That leadership of the social reform is only the intellectual class can give. And by becoming an academician, professor, or by publishing any papers, by claiming to be intellectual, by a PhD, you are a PhD scholar means you are intellectual. You are a professor means you are intellectual. You are writing about the society means you are intellectual. That's not enough. You have to question the fundamental challenges. What is the fundamental challenge that Dalit society is facing? Dalit society fundamental challenge is that Dalit society is divided into many castes. Each caste is fighting against each other. Chamar is fighting against Pasi, Pasi is fighting against Chamar. Chamar, Pasi fighting against Bangi, Bangi fighting against them. Why? You have to answer. Find the answer and address the answer. Find the solution. Why the Mars and monks never respect each other? Why? Have you ever asked? Why Mala Madhika is fighting continuously against each other? Why? And what is the solution to bring them together? Why? Where's the answer? These are the intellectual, honest intellectual is one who questions the fundamental challenges and find a solution. Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge says that Ambedkar already given the solution. So what is that solution? Bring together, find a meeting points between different castes of the Dalit society. Organize Dalit food festivals. Eating food makes people to stay together. Is there any organization doing this? Is there any Dalit intellectuals doing this? No. Because every Dalit intellectual want to be some or other, some big position. The fundamental question we have to find the answer. And then what is another challenge before the Dalit society? Dalit society divided into religions also. Dalit Buddhists don't like the Dalit Christians, and Dalit Hindus don't like Dalit Buddhists and Dalit Christians. And we are all Dalits. Why there is a division? We don't care what is your religious belief. We don't care what is your caste. Let us to build a Dalit consciousness. Our primary aim is to reconstruct the Dalit society based on the Dalit consciousness. And Dalit consciousness, Dalit society means what? No caste. No caste. Caste we need to annihilate. Even if you have a religious affiliation, religious identity, there should not be any conflict between religions. And within the Dalit society, there should not be any conflict between Dalit Buddhists and Dalit Christians. There should not be any conflict between Dalit Hindus and Dalit Buddhists and Dalit Christians and Dalit Sikhs. Ambedkar changed the religion. It is up to any Dalit. Any Dalit want to change religion or not, it's up to them. It's a personal matter. But when it comes to community interest, society interest, Dalit society should not have any religious conflict. No communal conflict, communal hatred in the name of religion between the Dalits. No caste hatred. No caste is higher or lower within the Dalit society. All Dalits are equal. That fundamental questions need to be addressed. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim, Jai Bharat.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for giving today's wonderful and insightful lecture to all of us. We all the participants always like your lecture, and we're hoping have next session same impactful. Sir, may I take some questions from the participant?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So now the question answer session will be start. Anybody who wants to ask question from the participant can ask.
Yeah. So nobody is there.
Okay. So with the permission of chair, I just want to go to the last part of our today's lecture, that is vote of thanks. It's the official vote of thanks. Respected speaker, distinguished scholar, Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara, organizers and esteemed participants. On behalf of the Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, it is my privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks for this insightful 60th online lecture on Ambedkar Text 5th, Annihilation of Caste, Section 21. First and foremost, we express our deep gratitude to our speaker, Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara, for enlightening us with his profound scholarship and nuanced critical analysis of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar seminal work. His valuable perspective have enriched our understanding of Dalit history, social justice, and intellectual and institutional equity. We extend our sincere thanks to the entire organizing team and coordinators, Dr. Sukeshni, Dr. Darshana, Akash, Shreyat, Dr. Smita, Shashikant, and Vijay for their dedicated efforts in executing this lecture series smoothly. Finally, we express our gratitude to all the researchers, scholars, and attendees joining us online for their active participations and engaging presence. Thank you all and have a wonderful day ahead. Please don't forget to subscribe our Dalit Knowledge YouTube channel where the recorded session will be uploaded shortly. So thank you so much. The lecture is over.